The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's class, which is going to be my special FTCU workshop number 1, and it's the Quick Start class, and it's class number 2 of the Quick Start series, I guess the Quick Start 2.0. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. It's, let's see, May the 13th. 2021. My name is Trevor Conquergood, coming to you live here from my home in sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. Super excited to record today's class. Like I said, this is going to be the workshop number 1, and it's the Quick Start 2.0. In other words, I'm redoing my Quick Start guide, and we kind of went over this in last class, didn't we? You know, I originally recorded my Quick Start guide. It was one of the very first things I did when I sort of prepared to work with the Floriani software. Well, now, many years later, I wanted to re-record those classes, and they're really meant to be the best first classes to watch. And so, although they're going to be something that all of the members of my workshop number 1 will get to download and keep along with their collection of classes, my intention is to share this class on my Facebook page. And so you guys are welcome to share links to this class and go ahead. Quick Start class, Quick Start 2.0 with Trevor, recorded in 2021. This is class number 2, and I'll have news for you guys about class number 3 is coming up almost right away. And so I have lots of great, we're going to have to get going because I have a lot of great topics for today's class. Yeah. So like I said, this is class workshop 1, Quick Start class number 02 on May 13th, 2021. If you have any questions for me, this is my email address, trevor@sunsetstitches.com. Of course, all the members will get sent the download for today's class, but you may be watching this class and not be a member of my workshop, and that is fine. You're welcome to. I'm going to post it on my Facebook page, but just know you're always welcome to join as a member of my workshop. These Quick Start classes are meant to help you with getting started. They're the first things to watch when you're a new owner of the software, and we kind of build the foundation of knowledge working up to the workshop classes. And if you did join workshop number 1, these are all of the classes that have been recorded. Like I said, I originally started, my original Quick Start guide started in 2015, and we recorded several live classes that year, and then more classes in 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21. And so I've been recording several new classes this year in 2021. And so if you are a member of my workshop, you should have downloaded all of these classes. And if you're missing any of them, just send me an email, trevor@sunsetstitches.com, and I'll make sure you got the links to download all of them. And as you may know, I've created 4 workshops for the Floriani software, and there's workshop 1, 2, and 3 were for the FTCU software, and then I created one using the Fusion software. And so the only reason that you need to purchase workshop 2 or workshop 3 is if you finish workshop 1 and you absolutely love it, you guys. And if you do, then there's more classes that you'll be able to download and watch. And so essentially those are the classes from workshop 2, and these are the classes from workshop 3. And the Fusion workshop classes were recorded after. They were the ones that I recorded just this past year. And I'd said anybody who purchased workshop 1, 2, and 3 could receive a copy of the Fusion workshop classes to download for no extra charge. And people who bought the Fusion software received the membership to my Fusion workshop, you know, when they bought the software. And so if you buy workshop 1, 2, and 3, then I will be happy to email you the links to also collect. That way you'll have all of the classes. You can collect them all. The only other things that I have that you might be interested in is my embroidery club, and that's where you get all my great embroidery designs and the projects, and it's Trevor and Friends. And there are season 1 and season 2. And like I said, if you want to ask questions, maybe just send me an email. We got to get on with today's class so that we can get through all the topics. This is going to be a really awesome class for a new user. Upcoming class dates. And so like I said, I wanted to, in fact, I've planned a 3rd getting started, or a quick start class, I guess is what it is. The quick start class part 3 will be on May the 18th. And that was the original date of FTCU workshop number 1, class 15, which, as you guys all probably know or may not know, is going to be the 5-flower challenge review class. That's right, we're having a challenge for all the members of our workshop right now. If you own the workshop number 1 and you'd like to participate, please do. Now, I've held it over because originally today's date was kind of like the deadline for entries, and I've got quite a few beautiful entries. But that said, I was hoping to get more. And so I've decided to give you guys another couple of weeks. And so you have 2 more weeks to send in your entries. If you would like to participate in the 5-flower challenge and you're current in following along with me, then it's not too late to still do up a design. The challenge is to take one of the 5-flower designs that was sent out in the class number 14 and digitize it in any way that you want. And it could be, the concept was to challenge yourself to learn something new. And so if you're brand new, you could take a very simplistic approach to digitizing, just some basic shapes. If you've been digitizing for a while and you've learned lots of techniques, maybe try something new. Try a fringe design or a lace design or an applique or a cutwork or something different. Anyway, you guys, I've extended all the dates. So we're now going to do the quick start class 3 next week on Tuesday. And then you've got a couple of weeks. I need to get your entries sent to me by Sunday, May the 30th, so I can get them ready for the review class, which will be on Wednesday, June the 2nd. All right, so that's all the latest news from FTCU workshop number 1. And this is where we're going to start today's class. Actually, this is not. Sorry, I'm getting excited. I'm getting there. This is the example of one of those 5-flower designs that I did. I did this in class 14, right? I actually took the design that was originally from, the very first time I did it was in class number 6 or something like that. And we rebooted up the challenge. And anyway, you'll have to watch the class 14 to see all the fun we had. But we created this Mylar sort of lace design. And we're going to do another little Mylar sort of style design today in today's class. So yeah, anyway, we took this, this is one of the designs it's an example of taking one of those pieces of artwork and digitizing it. And then in my case, I turned it into a freestanding lace Mylar flower, so that was, but that's not the challenge. You can do anything you want. There's 5 flowers. It's up to you how to digitize them. Just make a design, send me your WAF file, include any notes, questions, and photographs, and email it to me by May the 20th so that I can prepare my review. All right, you guys, so this is where we're going to start today's class. We're going to look at editing designs, and we're heading towards digitizing today. So you're going to go really far in the learning curve today. And so if you are a brand new user, you may want to watch this class more than once, because I don't intend to go slow or necessarily don't want to go too fast either. But what I'm saying is I'm going to try not to say everything twice, and I'll just do a good job of demonstrating and then kind of go on, because I have a lot of topics for today. So all that said, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to open up the Floriani software, and we're going to take a look at using the select tool and some of the copy and paste tools to repurpose your embroidery designs. And so we made this little sort of swarm of butterflies, and it's an interesting demonstration because first of all, the design, if you don't know, it came from the FTCU, monthly designs. If you were to look for it, I have it kind of in like Trevor's favorite designs to teach with, but I believe it was originally from April 2009 or something like that. If you look in your library under your free monthly designs and you look under April 2010, I believe that's where the design originally came from, right? So you all have this design. And then, so the concept was, could we sort of repurpose it? And so you want to maybe make a copy of one of the butterflies, and you go to click on it to select it. So I'm using the select tool. Notice you can tell I'm using the select tool because it's colored orange, and it's over here on the left-hand side of my workspace. And when I click on the empty workspace, nothing will be selected. And when I select on some piece of embroidery, it will select. Now, in this case, it selected everything. And that's because when you drag designs in from your browser and library windows over on the right, they come in grouped together. And so it's all grouped as one thing, makes it easy to select the whole design and resize it or move it or position it in your hoop. So maybe one of the first things you want to do is tell the software what kind of format you use. And then the software will show you the hoop styles that are available for that machine. You see what I'm saying? And so you get to choose which one you want. And when you say okay, it will place that hoop on your screen. And so here's an idea that you could bring your embroidery down. Now, if you want to select just one of those butterflies, you're going to need to ungroup it. And so there's more than one way to do that, but probably the easiest is right here on our this little dynamic toolbar changes. So notice when I click on the empty workspace, the contents of that toolbar is different than when I click on this logo or this design and the tool's changed. So it always seems to know what the next tool you might want to use is, and in this case, it knew ungroup. There's also an option to ungroup up on the top. This would be the main sort of like home for it, right? Ungroup and group are right there, and they'll always be there. But it seems like just when you need them, it's also right here. If I'm not mistaken, you can also right-click and choose ungroup. And so I guess get there however you like to. Just know that a lot of times in the software, there will be more than one way to perform, especially the common tasks like group and ungroup. Okay, so all that said, now that I've ungrouped everything, if I go to click on the pink butterfly, it doesn't select the pink butterfly for me. It selects a piece of the pink butterfly. And that's because really that's not simply two butterflies and some flowers. This is like a series of small pieces. So when you look at your sequence view, you'll notice the colors of a design, but if you click on the plus beside a color, you will see all of the smaller shapes that make up that color, and you can select them by using the select tool and clicking on them. You can also click in your workspace on the right in the sequence view to select something, and you could select all of the whole color by clicking on the color as opposed to the individual shapes. You can select multiple shapes by holding down either the control key or the select key. So notice if I hold on, I'll click on that one there. I'm going to hold my control key and click on this one and maybe that one. And then, well, maybe not this one, but that one. And so it's at random when you hold control. Now, I'm not holding control, and if I click on a different one, it'll let go of all the rest of them. If I hold down the shift key and go about halfway and click, it'll select everything down to wherever I selected. So shift will select everything in between. So don't hold select. Click on the last one, hold down select, move your mouse, hold down select, and click on another one, and it selects everything in between. All right, another way that you can select is to click and drag a box in the workspace, and everything inside of your box gets selected. Now, I can actually select this butterfly by clicking and dragging a box as long as I get around all the shapes of the butterfly. Notice when I draw this box, that part of the box is actually covering some of that green leaf at the bottom of the butterfly. And yet when I let go, it didn't select that piece of green leaf. And that's because, okay, click off to let go. It's because the green leaf is not 100% in the selection window. So when I draw that selection window, all of the pink shapes are selected, but the green shapes and the white shapes are not fully surrounded by the box. And therefore, when I let go, it only selects the pink butterfly. So just know that when you click and drag, as long as you can draw a rectangle around it, it'll select it, whatever you can drag around. So we'll go ahead and select that pink butterfly. And now if you wanted to use this butterfly in another design, you could click up here at the top on the copy symbol and then click on new to make a new embroidery design. And now you can click paste, and you've taken part of a design and created a new embroidery design for it. And so now you can put a hoop on your screen, change the hoop size, etc., and save this design. Remember from last class, save it as a WAF file first, right? Go, little pink butterfly WAF file, save as, save it to your desktop as little pink, and save it as a WAF. Now you always have that WAF to go back to and make sizes, maybe add some more text, do whatever you're trying to do to it. But of course, your sewing machine doesn't read the WAF. And so at some point, you need to put a USB stick in your computer and say File Save As, and then save the design onto the stick in one of the machine formats. And that's kind of how it works, right? Do I need to keep the machine format on my computer sort of desktop or computer hard drive? Not yes and no. I don't. I just keep the WAFs because I can always make the files for my machine. I have multiple embroidery machines, multiple formats. I don't keep 4 or 5 copies of every design. I just keep the WAFs. And when I want to sew them out, I open them up and save them on the stick in whatever format I need on that day. That said, there's not wrong to make a PES or a JEF or whatever format you need, save it onto your hard drive and keep that as well. It makes it easy if you plan to email them to your friends and you know that you just want to be able to grab your butterfly and your pony and your other designs and quickly email them all your PES files or JEF or whatever that format you use, VP3, whatever. There's so many great formats. But WAF is the king. So anyway, coming back to the little swarm of butterflies that we want to make. So in this case, I started with the one little pink butterfly. And once I've copied it to my, we just pasted it into that other new design, I can click paste and it'll put it right on top of the other butterfly. Now, you might not notice that it did anything and you might click off and say, well, I don't think it did anything. And you click paste again. But actually, no, what I just did was made 3 pink butterflies that all sew exactly on top of each other. And you can tell that, first of all, if you over in your sequence view, it's kind of all expanded and looks, there's a lot of things to look through. But if you right click, you could say collapse all. And that would show you just the colors. And then noticing at the bottom, you might just start to notice, oh, pink, 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 pink. Same thing up here in your slow redraw. You would, what? I think it did paste that butterfly in and it's pasted it right on top. Look, if I hit undo, less copies of pink and undo, now we're back to just one butterfly. So the point is, if you use copy and paste, and when you paste, it will paste your butterfly directly on top of where it was copied from in the exact location. And you can click and drag to move it afterwards, but just know that copy and paste makes a straight copy on top of each other. And the reason I like to point that out is because there's also a copy symbol right here. When you have something selected, if you want a copy of it, you can click right on that copy symbol there. And that time, or in that case, it will make, it'll offset it. Watch, it clicks and makes a new butterfly and drops it down into the right a little bit. And that way you can sort of visually see that you've made a second butterfly and it's easy to select it and move it. As you're moving these around, you can, of course, use your flip tools to flip the butterfly to face the other orientation. You've got rotate tools by 45 degrees or by 90 degrees. You also have the little rotate handle that's on your selection kind of window here, and you can just grab on that little handle and rotate it around. And so really what we're talking about is the select tool, selecting and transforming shapes, right? So we click on a shape to select it, or we click and drag a box to select multiple shapes. We can copy those shapes to make a duplicate of them. We can resize or move them, so change their position, change their size. You can also, so a corner handle will resize in proportion. A side handle will squish or stretch, so giving you a slightly new proportion. And so really it's up to you to kind of transform your designs into however they make you happy. And so once you've kind of duplicated all your butterflies, you go forward. Now, the one that's harder to select is the brown one, because it doesn't seem to, no matter what box I click and drag, it always seems to pick out some of those other little pieces. Now, there's a variety of techniques that could be used to select just the colors of that butterfly and not get these ones. First of all, now that I've selected all these ones, I could hold down the control key and click back on those shapes to deselect them. No, it'll let me add them, but does it? It doesn't allow me to deselect them. So that doesn't work, Trevor. But it does allow you to add more. Holding down control and clicking on the next shape can add more into the group, but getting them out. So that said, click off to let go of everything, right? Now, so there wasn't a good rectangular selection box, but notice below the rectangular selection, we also have the lasso selection. And with the lasso selection, I get to click and click to draw the selection box. And so remember the rule, it's okay to go across these green shapes, just don't fully surround them in your selection or they'll get included. So notice that I've fully surrounded the brown butterfly, but really none of the green leaves. And when I right click, I just got the brown butterfly. So that would be one way of selecting a group like that. And like always, once you've selected your group, you can click on your copy tool to make another copy of it. Now, so a couple more things about kind of what we're doing here. First of all, there's another way to select this. I'm going to come over. My sequence view is all expanded again, so I'm just going to right click and tell it to collapse all again. Another way to select is to click on the colors. So notice if I click, there's the yellow and there's the brown. And so here's the problem with doing it by colors is notice the color yellow. If you thought, well, you could select the color yellow and then hold shift and come down and select all four of those colors, you're right. You totally can, right? You can click on the green, hold down shift, come down here, select on the white, select all those flowers, get rid of that part. But here, notice the color yellow, it's got some butterfly and some flower tips. And so that's where the lasso selection is more important because there's no easy way to just select, by color. If there was, like maybe with the pink butterfly, you could say, well, I could select that color and then hold down shift and come down to kind of the fourth color in the group and select that whole butterfly. And that's another way to select. So there's a lot of ways to select what you want. Once you have something selected, I've already shown you copy and paste on the top toolbar or the little copy symbol down here, which kind of copies and pastes all in one shot. Another option is to select something and then use the duplicate tool. Now that's the tool that is right here, on the red tool group. It's right here. It says duplicate. And when I click on duplicate, whatever I had selected becomes attached to my mouse. And notice now all I have to do is click and drag to make a new butterfly and then let go to make it. And I wait for the software and then I can click and drag to make another one. And it just keeps allowing you to keep clicking and dragging. So this is the duplicate tool. Select something, and then when you click and drag, the further you drag, the bigger it gets. But I don't have to let go, and I can bring my mouse back down and make it smaller again. And I can kind of play with the orientation of the butterfly. But when I finally let go, boom, it will create that butterfly. And so this is kind of how it works, you guys. So once you've created your little swarm of butterflies and then you go to stitch it out, and maybe you do yourself like a little printed preview, or right away you might be noticing that you've really created kind of a candy cane up at the top here. And, if you were to look at it in like print preview or something, you'd realize how many color stops there were going to be in your design. It's like the number of times that pink sewed, light pink, medium pink, dark pink, repeat, because the way the software works, when you create copy and then paste, whatever you paste goes to the end. So if we selected another brown butterfly and click paste, it would show up at the end. And so the sewing sequence can be altered But there's a lot of altering that needs to be done. And the easiest way to do it is to use the color sort tool, right? So with the color sort tool, you allow the software to look at all the colors in the design and say, well, I could reduce your design by, in this case, it's 28 colors. So the way it does that is it puts all the light pink, all the medium pink, and all the dark pink, etc., together. And so it creates jumps to do that. It says, well, when we start sewing light pink, we will sew all of the light pink in each of those butterflies, unless, it gets to, and then do all the medium pink and all the rosy pink and all your darkest pink. So that's the color sort tool. And that's really just an example of kind of creating a design layout, copying and pasting and some of the most basic things. And so let's kind of move on. That said, I will pop open my questions box from time to time and see if anybody's asking any questions. Hi, Beverly and Lane and Brenda and Marcia. Good to see you guys too. Anyways, anxious to see what you have for us today, Trevor. Thanks, Marcia. I'm so happy to see you guys. Listen, this is our quick start class. And so I'm focused on sharing as many important sort of basic functions as I can in one kind of good, 2 or 3 really good classes. These are the best plans to get started with. Does the software recognize if one color needs to be sewn before another? What a great question, Veronica. And so I'm going to go right in onto that one because it does. It's so smart. Let's just also, how can I demonstrate this? What we're going to do, so we've got our design and it's already all color sorted, right? So I'm going to undo it. And so it's no longer color sorted. Can you see that? And now what we're going to do is we're just going to select one of these butterflies. And the one that we've selected is from like somewhere in the middle, right? It's not the first group. It's not the last group. And so when I selected this butterfly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that it overlaps with another one of the butterflies, so that there's like an area that's over. Oh, I see. I've also taken a little piece out of this butterfly by accident. So here, let's hit undo. See that when I drew my selection box, I didn't notice that at first, but now I will. There, now I have just that little butterfly. And what I said was, I'm going to make it overlap with another one of the butterflies, maybe even 2 of them. So 3-dimensionally, let's just look. 3-dimensionally, this butterfly that I put is on top of both of those other 2 butterflies. Let's see if I can make it so that I'm going to select this butterfly over here. No, let's use lasso. What I'm trying to demonstrate is the layering of it. And so I'll just demonstrate by maybe creating kind of like where one is on top and one is behind. All right, we'll see how this works. Right. So what I'm going to do, I selected this butterfly and I'm going to go cut and then paste. So what did that do? It took it out of the design, and when it put it back in, it made it the last thing to sew in the design. So now if I select this butterfly right here and I move it down here, it's going to be in front of that butterfly and behind that butterfly. And so the software will now maintain, because we created those overlaps, the software will understand that it can no longer combine all of those butterflies into one sequence, because 3-dimensionally, this butterfly needs to sew before that butterfly, and that butterfly needs to sew before this butterfly. And so now if I use my color sort tool, it'll probably be less than 28 color stops. It only reduced it by 21 color stops. And so notice at the end that there's a few repeats of the pinks. If you were to watch it sew out, it'll kind of blaze through and do most of the light pink, but it won't do the light pink in the areas that, so then it does the medium pink and the dark pink, So up until that point, but notice, for example, how it's left out some of the pieces in this butterfly right here. That way it can do the one that comes in between and then come back to those colors that needed to be. So I guess that's the answer to your question in a more visual terms. The answer is yes. It understands the layering of a design. And so if you've got a snowman with a white body and little white eye shines on top of his eyes, it's never going to try and put the white of the body on top of the black of the eyes, and it's never going to take the white off of the top of the eyes and trying to put it behind them and into the white of the body. And so it understands the three-dimensional aspect of your designs. Really good question. Well done. What if we reverse the light pink and the dark pink one of the Veronica, the way it's gonna, oh, you got it. Excellent. Yeah. So you understand now. It understands kind of the layering of the design, and it will do its best to produce the colors, but not interrupt the layering. Okay, all that said, let's kind of go on to my next topic. And so we're going to do a really short one here. It's a simple tool, but again, it kind of goes along the idea of editing your designs. And it's one I always like to show, the Nap Control. It was recently upgraded in the latest version of the software. Nap Control was upgraded. The design came from October, obviously. It's a Halloween tree. So it was October, and I want to say 2009 or 2010. Again, yeah, 2009. So there's the little Halloween tree. It's from your free monthly designs. Now, the thing with the tree is it's really not well suited to sew on a towel because of all the run stitches and how those little run lines will kind of sink into the terries. And even if you use a topper, the topper won't really remain behind a piece of run stitch to support it, through the life of washing that towel. And eventually some of the elements just kind of disappear. So the new tool is up at the top. It's right here. It's called Nap Control. And when you click on Nap Control, you get a little window. This is the enhancement that we didn't used to have the ability to control how far around the embroidery should it go, and then, there's two options, outlines or stitches. So this is also an enhancement because remember last class we started to talk a little bit about the difference between stitch designs and when you open them as stitches, or if you use that magic conversion to outlines option. And I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is the tool not blocking, you don't have to do convert to outlines. Even if you've just opened up a design as stitches, the nap blocking will be able to work, with the stitches. Just choose whether you're based on stitches, or in this case, outlines means designs it was made using the Floriani software, so true kind of Floriani shapes. Either way, it works with both, I guess is the point here. And you can add a little finishing stitch around the outside of your shape if you want to add that. And this is how far around the shape will it go. And you get to decide kind of how close or how far it will be. It's currently set in millimeters, but that's because I've got my ruler set in millimeters. If you change your ruler to inches, as you probably know, it's a right click, change it over to inches and back to millimeters. It'll work in inches. Anyway, you type in what size you want. So I said 3 millimeters, and now it basically traces around the edge of the embroidery, 3 millimeters around it, and then makes this kind of cool little mesh background called nap blocking or nap control. Yeah, so that's just an example of how, I think a lot of people that first get the Floriani software, these are some of the first things they want to do. Edit their designs and do things like select parts or all of a design and nap block. And so that's the concept of nap control. So, all right, on the vein of sort of like editing your designs or redoing designs, or is making layouts of designs. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the layout tools and do a cool kind of layout of one of the floral designs. Otherwise, we're kind of heading towards a little bit more in-depth stuff here. So we're starting out with some of the kind of fluffy and light stuff. So what I'm going to do is just click on another empty workspace and maybe grab some kind of piece of artwork to show kind of how these tools work, and then we'll make a little floral circle out of it. Basically, any piece of artwork or any embroidery design, anything that you have will work. So I take a little money. And the tools I'm talking about is this little light blue group right here. You've got your fling repeat. So when you click on fling repeat, the first thing it looks at is the size. So first of all, I sure didn't get many bunnies. There's only one. And it's in a size of 200. So again, if I was to want to work in inches, let's show you how to do it. Right click over here on your ruler, right on the ruler, change it to inches. And it tells me that this bunny is like basically a 4-inch bunny. And when I clicked on the fling area, it's in an 8-inch area. So there's a room for about 2 bunnies in an 8-inch area. Now, I can change the parameters. So for example, the minimum and the maximum scale. So starting with a 4-inch bunny, going down as small as 80% and going up as far as 140. If I make this, 50 instead of 80, click apply, makes the bunnies a little smaller, allows for a few more of them in the layout. If you make the layout bigger, or if you make the actual bunny smaller to begin with, so what if it was just a little 1-inch bunny? Now, how many bunnies can you get in your 8-inch area? And you get to decide how much social distancing they have to have. And so, depending on the pandemics, you have to increase your maximum social distancing. However, if, things get back to normal, we might be able to turn that back down to kind of a more socially closer area. And so I never thought that I'd be using the pandemic to talk about the fling repeat tool, but you get the idea that every time I click apply, it just flings my bunnies down and I get more of them. And like I said, you're in control of these parameters, things like the spacing, the minimum and the maximum scale, and the width and the height. Notice the other options like auto rotate and color sort. So you can kind of turn those on and off. Color sort doesn't really apply on a one color piece of artwork. This isn't even an embroidery design. I'm actually just basically flinging around a bunch of pieces of artwork of bunnies. That said, let's just take one of those bunnies and copy them, change his color, and do another one. And so that's a fling layout. They can be embroidery designs. And I think the point about when I showed you there was a color sort tool, that kind of comes more when you're using the tool with an embroidery design that has like 3 or 4 colors. Then that's like the whole concept of it. Each repeat can be color sorted all at one step. What I thought I would show you now is rows and columns, right? So if you wanted to do here, let's make our bunny kind of back to sitting normally along the horizon like that. And then so if you had to do a sheet of them, maybe you're doing little lace bunnies and you want to make them for all your friends for Easter, how many rows and columns of bunnies do you want to make? And how much social distancing do you need? And click apply. And then again, all of these different kind of offsets. So flip every other one vertically. See that? So I can kind of like have fun and do a little arrangement, rows and columns, flip everyone horizontally, offset everyone by every other row by a certain degree. So now I get to say by, 30 degrees. See? Kind of fun. And then click OK to create your little layout. So let's try another one. Let's make a copy of the bunny again. This time we'll do kind of like a corner layout. And so with a corner layout, what it's going to do is it's going to take and make 4 bunnies in 4 different quadrants. And you, of course, can control the angles. So that would kind of like rotate your bunny around and give you, you could even kind of get it to do sort of like a unique picture frame, of bunny rabbit photo frame, or whatever you want to do. But you can, of course, control the distance between the 2 bunnies and click OK. So then the next one is kind of a fun one. It's the, what are they called? Just like templates of, shapes. This is like you can create, there's a bunch that it comes with and you could of course make your own, but they're basically like little arrangements. So if I click on a new template, it's like gives you a line and then you can put your bunnies along that line. Yeah. And the last one is the circle full of bunnies. If you do the circle full of bunnies, It's going to decide how many bunnies go around your circle. You can choose what angle the bunnies will be in relationship to the circle. You could offset the angle of the circle. You can change the height or the size of the circle to make more room for more bunnies if you need even more bunnies in your circle. Yeah, so it's basically a fun little circle template. So the template tools are a great way to repurpose your designs. And so that's where I thought it was kind of a fun example was the floral corner. So again, I think that floral corner came from April 2010. Well, or May, was it May 2010? Anyway, yeah, it was May 2010. And so that floral design, floral corner, so right away you're thinking, oh, right, you're supposed to put it in the corners to do like a photo frame. Now that's obviously not the right orientation, so you would rotate it around until it was, or or you could just type in 90, because I'm pretty sure the number I'm looking for here is 90, and I could actually just type it 90 and click apply, boom, and then you could put a little distancing to kind of separate the designs. But the way I decided to go with was the circle template, because when you click on the circle template, it takes the corner design and repeats it around a circle and makes a really cool kind of orientation of it all. And so that's how I stitched it out. And so it takes a minute because, there's quite a few pieces in this design, quite a few colors, and it's duplicating them all. And so you got to be patient when you use some of the tools, right? If the spinning wheel's spinning, it means it's not a good time to start clicking. Anyway, you guys, so notice the layout is there, and you could go through and change all the parameters to kind of make it perfect. The one I want to point out here is color sort, because if I leave color sort checked off, then it will combine all of the light greens and all of the yellows and pinks so that I don't have to do, a lot of color stops. But if I uncheck this, it will do each corner and then move on to the next corner. And so therefore 6 times it would do each color. Does that make sense? So again, the color sort tool we kind of looked at already with the butterflies, and now we're just seeing it as kind of like applied while doing the sort of circular layout. It auto color sorted the whole design for us. So notice the little dotted lines. Okay, so when you're looking at your embroidery designs on your screen, if you click on 3D, it will hide the dotted lines. Dotted lines are not stitches, they're jumps. When you turn off 3D, you will be able to see the path. When it did the blue color or the brown color, it did this little brown bug's body and then jump, 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 did that little brown bug's body and then jump, jump, jump onto the next. And so you can see, so dotted lines means jumps, not actually the stitches of the design, but it does allow you to see the path that the machine will be taking to get from one area to the next and the sequence of your whole sewing of your design. And so these are the fun kind of things that you can do when you have lots of embroidery designs. Open your designs, select them, duplicate them, copy them, make layouts from them, this kind of thing. All right, so all that said, I'll take a quick peek at the questions box, and then we're going to move into sort of like more of the how it works, and really getting into things. So beginnings of digitizing really is what we're going to be doing. Yes, Veronica loved my social distance bunnies. I know, I just thought of that. Brilliant. Hey, anyway, not really, but just, eventually we'll get all the bunnies safely protected. They just wash their hands and stay social, and then eventually they won't need to wear their masks anymore. All right, so now, okay, let's go forward with today's class, and enough with the pandemic jokes, Trevor. They're not working for you, but that is the layout of the flower circles. So what we're going to do now is learn about basic shapes, custom shapes, and then kind of move on into sort of more of creating shapes and converting things into embroidery. And so basic shapes and custom shapes. Let's just click on a new empty workspace. And then the tools I'm talking about are up at the top. This is the basic shape tool. When I notice the little triangle, so anytime you have a tool that has a triangle beside it, it means if you click on it, there's more than one tool option. And so the triangle represents a flyout. And when you click on it, it shows a rectangle and an ellipse and a triangle and a, pentagon and a hexagon. And so if you click on the rectangle and you click and you drag, you draw a rectangle. Click and drag, you draw another rectangle. Click and drag, another rectangle, almost a square. If you want a square, hold down your control key while you're clicking and dragging, and that will force the proportions to stay equal, so therefore a square. Same thing if you grab the ellipse tool, click and drag, you get an ellipse. Click and drag, you get a different ellipse. Hold down your control and you'll get a perfect circle. So I'm making shapes, you guys. We've drawn circles and squares and rectangles and ellipses, and I can click on them to select them. I can come down below, click on a different color. Notice up top here, I've got a fill option. I can fill them in with a color or not. So these are all artwork, and so filling in artwork simply shows it as a solid color. Not filling it in shows it as an outline. You can also click on the outline width and change how wide the outline is, but this is only the artwork of the outline, and it does not technically change the design in any way. In fact, if you saved this to SVG, all of the circles would be the same width. They would all be the center line. So it's really just a visual thing when you use the pen width to adjust the width of your pens. But I guess it will make things a little more bolder, easier to see. So the idea is you have basic shapes, and you also have over here on the right, this is called your custom shapes library. When you click on it, it opens up a little window. The software will come with a bunch of shapes. That's where the apple comes from. That's where the banana, the baseball bat come from, right? You click on a shape to select it. It comes on your screen. You can transform it, size, its color, etc., etc. Okay, and so that's kind of how it works. Copy it, paste it, flip it over. Now you've made crossed baseball bats, but really what you have is two separate pieces of artwork. I could make one a green bat and one a brown bat. So this is really how the software works. It's what we kind of talked about in our last class. It's what I call artwork-based embroidery. The artwork is the building block of the software. By the way, you can add your own artwork to the custom shapes library. So you may have noticed some custom shapes that I had in mine that you may or may not have had in yours. The little black cat, for example. You probably don't have a little black cat. I can share it with you guys. I'll share it with today's class, but I'll make it an SVG file. So it's like a little piece of artwork. But the idea is, if you create an artwork that you love and you want it to be in your little custom shape library to use at a later time, what you need to do is select whatever that is, and then it's under the tools drop down menu. You say save custom shape, and it's going to let me give it a name. So, I'll call it crossed bats. And say save. And so now if you look in your custom shape library, there will be a new one under the letter C, because it's kind of alphanumerical, CR, crossed bats. And so I can get new crossed bats and use them in any design kind of at any time. Excuse me. So custom shapes and basic shapes are basically a collection of, you can draw a shape, right? And that's going to be one of the next things that we're going to look at, is making your own shapes. So anyway, before we get to that, what I thought we would do, so basically we want to look at, I've got two topics now, and I'm realizing now that I think I have them kind of reversed, because this says select and shape tools. But before we can look at that, we need to look at converting to embroidery, and I'll explain why. So we'll come back to this after that. How's that? So we're going to do this now. Convert to embroidery. You see, this is really how it works, and we started on this last class. So you've got your shapes. Let's just say it's a rectangle. You click on it to select it. You can tell it's selected because it has a box around it. Let's click on the cat. See the box around the cat? That's the transformation box. You can use the transformation box to resize something and, reshape it, etc., etc. But it's just a piece of artwork. It has no stitches. If you want to add stitches to the cat, you look to the bottom of the software. These are the styles of embroidery. And so I'll click on the first one. It says run. And now my cat is a run stitch. It looks kind of small because his eyes just turn into like a little slit. So here, let's do this. Let's make it bigger. Turn on 3D so that you can get an idea of what it is. So now that I've made the cat bigger, there was room to, make a run stitch that went all the way around his eyes, that kind of thing. That's if I click on run stitch. If I click on steel stitch, it's putting satin borders around the cat. And if I click on standard fill, it's filling the cat in. So every one of the clicks along the bottom of your software is another style of embroidery. And, it could take a while to go through them all, but we need to learn some key things about it in general. First thing I want to show is, as much as you can come down here and click on these different styles to change the kind of stitching that is inside of your kitty cat, you can also come over to this little yellow star and click on artwork, and that just goes right back to where you started from. Does that make sense? So this is like your ginormous eraser for the stitches below. And so the first group on the left are outlines. They will outline your shape. So if you click on a rectangle and you click on run stitch, it goes around it with a forward, 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 like the straight stitch of a sewing machine. If you click on it and select it and choose the next one, now it goes around with a motif pattern. And again, it goes around with a decorative kind of like still, like an outline, but instead of a straight stitch, it's got a decoration to it. So a motif. Notice when I click on it and select it, that there's an area over on the right called the properties box. And this is a very important part of using the software, because this is how you can further enhance the results. With one click, I can get this, but if I click over in the properties box, I can choose from hundreds of different patterns to put around that shape. And it's entirely up to me which one to choose. It's up to me what size they'll be. You can flip them horizontally and vertically. So if I had, something that kind of had a direction to it, you might be able to see that better. I'm trying to think of what would that be. But so the idea is that you're in control of the way these go by changing these parameters. Now, every one of the clicks introduces all new parameters. So these are the parameters for a motif fill, but if I click on the next option, it's a steel stitch. And a steel stitch is essentially a satin column. It fills in an area, and the area is equal in width. It'll always be an equal width based upon a distance from your center line, which is set right now at 50% on either side, right? The inset is 50%, but you could change the width. So change it from 2.5 to, let's say, 4, makes it wider. Change the inset from 50 to, let's say, 20, and that changes it kind of like further towards the outside of the shape. Because remember, the original shape is actually just this line. That's the artwork that you started with. And so these are outline styles. The next one is a combination. So it says steel dash run. And when I click on it, it will make a steel column with a run stitch on top. See that? Now click on it and look in your properties box, and you get a special tab now that says which one goes first, steel or the run. So, okay, the steel goes first, the run goes second. This is the settings for the run. It's a single run. Maybe we'll try a motif run and then do some sort of a fancy motif pattern and have that sew on top of the steel. So that's the idea, that you could create something new and unique. And it can be a combo. And so notice when I look at in my sequence view and it tells me that it's a steel run, and it's got a little plus beside it because the steel run has the first part, which is the steel, and the second part, which is the run, and you can give them independent colors if you want, so one shape, a steel run, having two color stops. And so really it's what we're talking about are the styles of embroidery, how to convert shapes into embroidery. And we looked at the first group, the outline group. Now the next group we have to look at are the satin group. And then the next group after that is the standard fill group. And so the blue group over here starts out with satin, finishes with auto satin. So what's a satin? First of all, and this will be because this will come up again in another couple of, so we'll take a look at how it works now, and then we'll kind of study how they're different later. So let's just take a look at the little baseball bat here. Click on the baseball bat. If I click on auto satin, it will instantly convert it into a satin embroidery design for me. Now, satin stitches by and large are the ones that don't have stitching in the middle. So when we say fill, we mean shapes that are covered in thread that have stitches that go, along the inside as well as the outside. And when we say satin, we mean shapes that are filled in with thread that mainly have the stitching on the outer edges, and there's really no stitching in the middle. So that's what this is a satin stitch. And we used the auto satin tool to make it. Now, if I click on the green one, auto satin does it for you. But if I click on satin, what happens is it waits for me to draw in the inclinations. So I click and drag to tell the software what stitch direction I want the stitches to go. So if you think, like the other one right across, then that's what you draw. But if you're like, actually, I kind of like it better on some kind of an angle, or maybe you want to do two angles or multiple angles, or maybe you want that handle to be back on the 0 again. And so you can control what stitch direction will be at throughout the shape of your design. Now you can also control the green, where should it start sewing point, and the red, where should it exit sewing point. So these are all the things that the software kind of decided for us when we did auto, but now we right click and it makes the thread. And notice that the thread actually goes on those angles that I gave it. And so that's the difference between the auto satin. So when you click on a shape like this ellipse and you click on auto satin, the software decides what inclinations and where they'll go. If I click on artwork, erase it all, and I click on satin, it waits for me and I have to give at least one. You can have multiple inclinations if you want, but at least one. Then right click, set the green where it should start sewing and the red where it should finish sewing, and right click, and it will generate those stitches however you've requested it. And so auto kind of says, yeah, just, I don't know, take it and auto satin it. Now, the ones in between are jagged satin, color blend satin, spiral satin, gradient satin, fancy satin, contour satin, and radial satin. And all of these tools give different patterns in a satin. So let's do it this way. I'm going to take this brown bat, bring it down, tell it to be a plain old satin, and just give it one inclination in the middle, and then right click to get the stitches. Select it and then tell it to be a jagged satin. and see how it makes the edges jagged, and you now get to control whether it's one side or both sides and how much sort of a range to the jaggedness do you want. Yeah, so that is a neat tool, the jagged edge satin. The next one is called a color blend satin. So it's going to take two different colors and blend them together. Let me see now. Yeah, no, something didn't work out right for that. Let's try, click on the artwork tool for a minute, just erase that. And then let's zoom in and again, try the color blend satin. Yeah, so now it's worked out for me. I don't know, it got confused, I guess, when I applied color blend on top of a jagged like that. But notice that this design has two colors. So one of them's kind of the original beige and the other one's the pink. And so what it'll do, if we kind of watch that stitch out, it will do kind of like a gradient stitching where the beige is more open in one area and more solid in the other, and the pink goes the other way. And so it kind of blends your two colors together like that. So each one of these satins is a different one. And the next one is called a spiral satin. Let me make it just a little larger. It needs a bigger area so that you can really kind of get the effect of it. So notice that it's putting sort of loops. Let's see if I just fast forward up to that point. You can see how it sews loop, 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 and it fills in the shape of the baseball bat in kind of cool spiral pattern like that. And so that is called the spiral one. Gradient satin. So now it's going to take your satin and use that gradient in a sort of like process again. The next one's going to be a contour satin. And so the contour satin goes up, back and forth and fills in the baseball bat with rows that all kind of are parallel to each other and contour. The next one's a radial satin. And so now you get, and maybe this is not a good shape for a radial satin. Let's see if I make it bigger and try moving around the entry point. Yeah, so again, probably better suited for something like a circle or an ellipse. So you take your ellipse and then you apply a radial satin and you can see the kind of neat effect that you get on it. Yeah, so, okay. These are all different satin styles of fill. And the satin fills, if you recall, are the ones that kind of required that extra inclinations, because if you click on one of the shapes and you move to the purple ones, it instantly does it for you. There's no requirement to stop and kind of like add that extra stitch across, if you will. So it starts out with a standard fill, and there are more than one pattern. So notice the properties box now, and it says standard fill. So it fills it in, unlike a satin fill. Remember before I told you a satin fill only had needle points on the outer edges? Well, we could make this shape, but a standard, when you click on the standard fill shape, you can make a satin pattern to your stitches. Provided they aren't too long, because if they get too long, it kind of shows them like a gap. But if I make them shorter, so see what I'm saying, how the shape can be done up in a satin, but if it's wider, what happens is it's too long for the stitches to sew across and look well. And so this is where you change to one of the patterns, and there's several different patterns, and each one of these patterns is meant to have a smooth texture to it. But they do have a bit of a sort of a repeatable pattern that you can kind of discern whether they make kind of like, you know, diagonal rows or kind of corn rows or for whatever. But they're not meant to be they're meant to be more of a flat pattern. So the standard fills are a flat pattern, because the one next to it's called the fancy patterns. And now the same concept, where the needle steps down is what makes the pattern, but you're in control of the pattern, and you come here to choose kind of the, you know, from a list of different patterns that are available. And those are called fancy fills. So there's all different types of fancy fills that you can choose from. The next one is a motif fill. So for example, if I take the big square here, click on a motif fill, now it fills it in with a more open and kind of a decorative area. Notice here where it says mixed patterns. And so you can combine two different motifs together. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. You can choose the size of them. So it's a 15. If I make it a 10, then they'll be smaller. Put in 20, they'll be bigger. Yeah, so that's the concept with a motif fill. And really, what we're really learning is that every one of these clicks is another style of embroidery. And a lot of the ones, moving forward towards the right, get into more of some of the fancier ones. So motif fill, now we have a gradient spacing, now we have a color blend fill, so two colors of gradient that are sort of blending together. Now you've got a wavy fill, so the fill direction goes in a wavy pattern. And so you become, you realize that really the artwork is the key element. If you don't have the shape, how do you do all this, right? How does this work? That's, once you've got a shape, it's pretty easy to do that kind of thing, right? So this one's the mesh fill. Now you choose from little mesh fill patterns. There's a bunch of them to choose from. This is the one that we'll use later today to do some mylar in one of our embroidery designs. Cross stitch fill. Sorry. Now, that's a textured fill. This little group right here, texture, advanced stippling, blah, blah, blah. Those came from from this one, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those 5 tools are actually from the Total Quilter program. And because I own FTCU and I also have activated Total Quilter, then I have extra tools that you may not have those tools. If you own FTCU, but not Total Quilter, you won't have the advanced texture, the texture. You won't have the advanced stippling. You won't have the echo quilting. You won't have the contour, and you won't have the shape echo. These are for people that are into quilting, right? Shape echo, you choose a shape, and then that shape echoes inside of another shape. And so these are popular kind of quilting styles of filling them in. And if you ended up with both programs, then like me, you would have kind of more options down at the bottom. And then starting at this little yellow one called embossing and moving over, these are all back to the FTCU tools. And they're more the advanced ones that we'll save for another day. The applique tool, that's going to be next week. Cross stitch, stippling, we'll talk about these things next week. Auto lace, cut work, etc., etc. We'll leave those for another day. So the main concept I want you to take from this is you have a piece of artwork and then you convert it into embroidery, and it's really up to you what style of embroidery to fill your shape in with. So the next topic in the class is drawing artwork. And so this is a good time to just quickly pop open my questions box and make sure that I didn't have any new questions. But no, everything looks kind of quiet in the questions box. And so if you guys want to ask any, don't be afraid. But that said, I'm going to keep moving because we got lots of good topics today. We're really trying to go through kind of the most we can about how it works. And so artwork. Now we're going to look at how do you create a shape? What if you don't have, what if you can't find a vector shape? I've already shown you guys that we have basic shapes like circles and squares and a custom shape library that you can, get little shapes out of. But how do you make a shape? Where did the cat come from, Trevor, right? How did you get that? And essentially it's this pencil. If you don't have artwork and you want to make artwork, you click on the pencil and that allows you to draw artwork. And essentially you click, 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 click. And when you right click, you stop drawing. And so I drew a line. Notice beside the pencil, there is a tool that says line and a little triangle beside it, which means there's a flyout. And if I click on it, it opens up to show me line, pen, Bezier, plus arc and curve. Now, I will say that arc and curve, again, they are only here because I own Total Quilter. But with FTCU, I get line, I get pen, and I get Bezier. Now, line is the first one that you should learn. It works like this. You click with your mouse to click points. They're all what I would call a corner point or a line. If you hold down the control key on your keyboard, it will smooth out your points and make them curved. If you don't hold down control, it will make them corners. And that's basically it. When you right click, that's it. You've finished drawing. And so I've drawn a couple of pieces of artwork. If you look in the sequence view at the very bottom, there'll be the last thing that, whatever you create next is the last thing in your design at the bottom of your sequence. There's the little shape that I just drew. I can click on it. I can select it. I can change its color. I can show it filled in or outlined. I can make it bigger or smaller. But what is it but a piece of artwork? What can you do with artwork? Well, I guess you can save it to SVG, cut it out on a cutting machine, or come down to the bottom and click on Run Stitch and sew it. Notice that I didn't close the shape, and therefore it's not closed, it's open. However, had I clicked on Standard Fill, it would fill in all of the shape. If you wanted a run stitch that was a closed shape and you wanted it to be connected at the end, there is a button over on the left here. That's the closed shape button. And that will basically draw the piece that's missing and connect it. Yeah, you can make it a standard fill by clicking here. You can make it an auto satin by clicking there. That's how it works, you guys. So you can draw shapes, and the standard mode is the one I just showed you. Left click for corners, hold down control for curves, right click to stop. The next one's called pen. And when you go into pen, it's click and drag to draw. You can rest your mouse, let go of it, but click the mouse down and draw some more. Click the mouse down, draw some more. But you're not done until you right click. So when you're in pen mode, it's left click and drag and right click to stop. Left click and drag, right click to stop. Bezier, the last one on the group, is where you, similar to before, you left click to draw. But if you want a curve, you click and drag, and you set the curvature by the distance of that tangent that you draw. Click and drag. The longer you pull it, the more it affects it. The less you pull it, the less it affects it. Right click to stop drawing your lines. So Bezier is great for people that have experience using commercial graphic programs that already know those kind of tools. Most people that are just getting started probably stick to the standard tool until you kind of grow into some of the other ones. Yeah, but that's how you can draw your own artwork, you guys. Just click, 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 draw a shape, select it, click on standard fill, fill it in. Click on steel stitch, outline it. That's how it works. So, okay. Digitizing tools. So what's a digitizing tool? Because what's digitizing anyways, right? I mean, that's kind of the concept, is that when we say the digitizing tools, what we mean is it will go straight into embroidery. You see, what we just did was click on the artwork tool and draw artwork. And when we were done drawing artwork, we right-clicked and we had created a shape that's an artwork. And now what can you do with artwork? You can convert it into its embroidery by clicking down below. So that's a process. Step 1, draw artwork. Step 2, convert to embroidery. So the digitizing tools are held here underneath this little green sort of embroidered circle. When I click on the little triangle, it flies open to show me a manual stitch tool, a run stitch tool, a satin stitch tool, a classic satin stitch tool, a steel stitch tool, a complex fill stitch tool, and an applique tool. So the point of these tools is it's all in one step. For example, I'll click on the one that says run stitch. Now I click, just like before, click, click, click for corner points, or hold down the control key to get curvy points. But when I right click, it's already embroidery. So left click to start, left click, left click, left click, right click to stop. It's already embroidery. Left click, left click, left click, right click. So when you draw a run stitch, you don't have to select it and convert it into a run. It's already a run. So the digitizing simply means from drawing all the way to thread. One step process. If you say manual, the difference is you have to click to make the needle points. And if you click and click and click, it won't put any in between. Whereas here, if I click and click and click, it'll make the line that I drew and at a set stitch length, put points along that line. Manual, no stitch length. It's if I want to make 1, 2, 3 short ones and a long one, and then one short one and one long one, it's up to me. I get to decide where the needle goes down. So that's manual. Run. Now the next two are satin tools. One's the regular satin, one's the classic satin. How do they work? This is the regular satin tool. So you draw the out, step one, draw the outline. Click, 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 click. Okay, I'm done drawing my outline. So then you right click. And now it's asking for the inclinations. And so I can say, okay, click and drag, there's one. Click and drag, there's another. Click and drag, there's another. Put in as many as you want. Right click when you're done. Now it's asking where should it start. Okay, I'll tell it to start here. Now where should it finish? I'll say over here. And there's the stitches. So I'll do it again. You draw the outline of your shape. It can be whatever shape that you want. You right click and draw in one or more stitch inclinations. You right click and draw in one green entry and one red exit, and it makes the stitches. So that's a satin fill. You draw it and you get to set the inclinations and the entry and the exit all in one time. The next tool was the classic satin. Classic satin is also sometimes called the 2-point tool because you go 1, 2 to make a set of points, and then 1, 2 to make another set, and 1, 2 to make another set. And when you right click, it makes the embroidery. So this tool will always start where you start, 1, 2, and then you do another set, 1, 2, and when you right click, it's finished. It started where I set it, where I started. It finished where I finished, and I put the angles in as I go. And so if I want to go 1, 2, and then new angle 1, 2, and then new angle 1, and then 2, and then I right click, it will start where I started, it will finish where I finished, and it'll have the 1, 2, 3 stitch directions as I go. And so I call that the 2-point tool. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and right click, and you're done. So that's the classic satin tool, popular for people that learned to digitize in kind of old school digitizing software. That was the main tool. This is the steel stitch tool. So now you draw the single kind of center line of your shape, and when you right click, it puts the column around it. So therefore a steel stitch. The next one in the group is complex fill. Complex fill is like the standard fill. Again, you draw the outline of your shape. You right click to stop drawing, and it gives you a horizontal stitch direction, but you can click and drag to change the direction if you want. Now it gives you a green entry and a red exit, and you're done. Let me do it again. Click, 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 click. Hold down Control if you want or not. Right click to stop drawing. Puts in a stitch direction. If you don't want to change it, just right click. Gives you the green entry, which you can click to choose start there. Click to choose finish sewing there. And it makes the stitches. If you want, you can just click, click, click to draw your shape, right click, don't care about the stitch angle, right click, don't care about the entry, don't care about the exit, and it'll just right click, right click, click, right click until you get your stitches. But the concept is you draw, 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 right click, click and drag to get an angle, click for a green, click for a red, and it does it all in one step. And so digitizing is for people that really want to get into making their own designs in a kind of a more methodical, kind of hands-on approach. Once you learn the digitizing tools, you create your shapes yourself. Okay, so I'm not going to go over all those tools again. I've already shown a lot of things in class today. We're an hour and 20 minutes into class, but we're not done yet, you guys. Today is a big class with a lot of concepts. Like I said, you may need to watch it more than once if these are all new things to you guys. Gotta go, Trevor. Thanks, Beverly. No worries. You can catch the rest of the part in your recording. Same thing with Brenda. Dropped off. No worries, guys. You will catch the recording later. What I'm going to do is get into our next topic. So we're going to just focus on what's the difference, the satin path and the standard fill. I always want to make sure that people get this one. So let's just click on a new empty workspace, grab the artwork for the banana backdrops. No, I'm getting out of hand here. Custom shapes, grab the little banana and put it on your screen. So the banana, I always like to color it yellow because it bugs me when it's not yellow, and now I've gone to pink and I don't have pink. Here in Saskatoon, we usually get green apples or green bananas, and then they eventually turn yellow. So here's my little banana. It's a piece of artwork that's 5 inches tall. At 5 inches, it's suitable for a standard fill. Perfect. It's kind of big for a satin fill, don't you think? You know, really, at 5 inches, it's probably an inch or two across, and so not really appropriate for a satin fill. However, if we make this banana smaller, then you would have the option. So there's the banana as a standard fill. Let's copy it. And now let's do it as a satin fill. So satin fill versus pattern fill. Now, that's not what I'm trying to explain. You see, both of those tools, both of those bananas are fill. We clicked on the purple star to make them. Remember the purple star? That's the same as the complex fill tool that we just looked at. In other words, I'm realizing what's missing here. Remember the, let me just rewind. Okay. Before I can really explain the difference between a satin path and a standard fill, I need to go to the one that we skipped earlier, which was select and shape tools. Okay, I just want to quickly show you the difference between the select tool and the shape tool. Then we'll come back to the bananas. So what I'm saying is, here, let's do the apple for it, just since. So bring up my custom shapes, grab up a shape of the apple. And so I'm going to click on standard fill. That's going to fill it in with thread. So the select tool is the one that we have over here, the orange. When you click on something, you select it. When it's selected, it gets a box around it. You can resize it or transform it. You can do it with the corner handles. You can use the properties box and transform it mathematically in either inches or in metric. So the tool is called select, but we have another tool right below it called shape, and we often interchange. We select things and then we go to shape. And notice when I click on shape, I get the inclination line, the green entry, and the red exit. So when we were digitizing the complex shapes, remember we were talking about these angles. So the point is, if you come in on the software and you select an artwork shape of an apple, and it's an artwork, and then you color it red because it makes you feel better, and then you fill it in with thread, you have not chosen the stitch direction, you have not chosen where it started sewing, and you have not chosen where it stopped sewing. The software did. We just converted the artwork in one click into embroidery. And so when you convert artwork into embroidery with the one-click tools below, you will probably want to stop with your shape tool and take charge and say, well, I think I'll have it sew on this stitch direction because I like that better. And I think I'll make it start sewing and finish sewing at the very same spot, kind of down at the bottom here. It's up to you. There's no correct way to do it, but this is how you can create more dimension into an embroidery design, is by introducing different stitch directions. So again, select tool, select it, change to shape tool. See which tool is highlighted as orange. You always know what you're using, what tools are turned on, because they'll be orange. 3D is turned on, it's orange. Now it's off, no longer orange. Shape tool, go back to select tool. See? So this is the two tools that are the most important, really, is select and shape. Shape is how you change the stitch directions and the green entry and the green exit. Okay, so now that we've kind of reviewed shape tool, we'll fast forward back to the bananas. What's the deal with the satin path versus the standard fill? Why is that a topic? So the two little bananas, I think they're still here. Yeah. So, all right, I made them kind of small on purpose because I wanted them to be a size that you could either satin or fill. But remember, the two bananas are both fills right now. Let's just get rid of the red apple. So they're both fills. And really what I want to do is I'm going to leave this one as a fill, and I'm going to change this one to be a satin path. Remember the tool satin path over here? Remember when I click on satin path, it voids the shape and waits for me to put the inclinations in. And so I'm going to say, go on that stitch direction there, and then on another one right here. So I gave the design two stitch directions, right click, set the green entry, set the red exit, right click, and you're done. So the point here is, when you do a satin, see how one says fill and one says satin path? Fill means when you go to shape tool, it can only have one angle. You can put it on any angle, but it's all one angle. You can set its green entry and its red exit, but a standard fill will only have one angle. Now, satin path, when you go to your shape tool, can have more than one angle. Notice here, and I'll do it again, I'll make them kind of goofy. I'll put one angle like that, and then I can right click and say add an inclination and get another one. See that? So, and really this is all kind of still part. So what I'm saying here is satin paths can have more than one stitch direction, and they're called inclinations. And you can uncover them by going into your shape tool. And when you're in your shape tool and you right click, you can add an inclination and then click and drag to another one. You can move the inclinations that are already there. You can also play with the red exit points and the green entry points and change the way the design stitches out. So if I watch that banana sew, it will start, let's just move it along, get rid of through the first one. It'll actually start right where I said to start, right there. It'll do its underlying stitches first, and it'll sew to the exit point and then walk to the far side and then back to the exit point, which is wherever I said it should be. So that's the cool thing about this shape tool, is that you can interact with where it starts sewing, where it finishes sewing, and the stitch directions. You can also interact with the points that make up the shape You can move them. You can right click to add new points to the shape. So if you've got a weird looking banana, now those stitches are missing because of the angle. If I move the angle, it'll fill them in. Now, what I probably need to make those fill in is another angle right about here. You see that? And you can kind of play with these things a little bit to get it just how you like it. But the concept here is you are in kind of charge of the shape and the inclinations that get made and how they get made. You can, so notice the shape points. It's this blue point here. It's a curve point, and therefore I can actually interact with those tangents. I can also right click over top of that point and change it from a smooth point to a line, which would get rid of those tangents. Hit enter to update the stitches. Right click, change it back to smooth again. Right click, cusp it. Now you can move one angle point independently of the other one. And symmetrical will make them both equal on both sides. If you make one bigger, the other one gets bigger at the same time. Yeah, so, okay, we're talking about the shape tool and kind of really some of the real nuts and bolts of how the software works. I don't care if you click on the digitizing wizard, what the software is going to make is fills and satin paths. And so at the beginning, you need to learn about how they get made and how to make them. All right, so moving right along, I know that there's a lot of topics and it's quite a long class, but I'm trying to fit in a lot into this. It's a very special class, helping you get started very quickly. I just want to talk about, now we're going to kind of move towards creating embroidery. And one of the first things you're probably going to want to do is look for an image to work from, right? And there's really two kinds of images. And we've been talking about one of them and not the other. And I just want to clarify the difference. And so what I'm going to do is bring up two kinds of images. Over here at the top, it says backdrop library and artwork library. And those are the two kinds of images. So a backdrop is a JPEG or a BMP or a TIFF, images that are made up of pixels. Click on the image and say open. Notice there are no shapes in the sequence view. Zoom in over top of the shape. Notice the pixels. Zoom out, try and click on the shapes. Notice that you cannot select them. All right, so now you realize why this is, what happens, right? Because we've learned about shapes and how we take shapes and we put thread into shapes. And now we found the first thing we want to make and it didn't come with any shapes. And that's the point. A backdrop, a JPEG, is not a vector image. JPEGs are what we call a backdrop. They're made up of pixels. Somebody has to digitize it. That somebody could be you. You could take this little artwork tool and you could just go click and then hold your little control key down and click and click. And I won't fuss over the points to make them perfect, but you get the idea, right? You click and you click and you click and you click. And when you right click, you've drawn your shape. And now you can select your little shape and you can do what? But fill it in with red. That's how it works. I digitized that shape. Yep, me. I did it. That was me. You saw me digitize it. But the point here is this is a backdrop. Now, so what's the other kind of artwork then, Trevor? There's two kinds. There's backdrops. The other one is the artwork library. An artwork library, these are designs that are made up of shapes. They're things like Adobe AI files, Adobe Illustrator. SVG artwork is another kind. You can open up WMF. There's a variety of formats of vector-based formats. And so it looks like it's the same little worm. And when I open it up, it is. It's the same little worm. Only this time, look in my sequence view. This one came with shapes. So same worm, As a JPEG, he's made up of pixels. As artwork, he's made up of shapes. I can actually click on the worm's little foot there, and you go, well, I don't know, I think maybe auto satin them. Oh, that wasn't the direction I was thinking. Maybe I go on my shape tool and I move the inclination to be more like that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then you're like, oh, okay, so I'll click on it this time. And then since the software didn't choose the same as me, I'll just click on the satin tool. And then I can just click and drag the angle that I want, right click, set the green entry point, set the red exit point wherever I want them to be. Boom. So now you're creating embroidery from artwork, right? So this is the concept that when you have artwork, it's pretty easy because you just have to select on your little shapes and decide what kind of stitching they're going to be. But if you don't have all of this, and that's really, I think, the bigger challenge is a lot of times people don't have one of these. You know, they went on the internet, they typed in whatever it was they were looking for, and they found one of these, which is a JPEG or a TIFF or a bitmap or one of these kind of pixelated images. And so that's where I think you're left with a variety of paths forward. You know, what do you do with the backdrop? How do you digitize it? Now, we could use the magic wand tool and auto trace it. Or we could use the wizard hat and auto digitize it. Or we could digitize it with our artwork tools. And it really comes down to what are you starting out with? You know, and that is such an important part of this because the backdrops are not all equal. So let's leave the little worm here. He's on design 8. Let's click on a new empty workspace. Now we've got design 9. There's 2 ways to bring a backdrop onto your screen, or I guess 3. One is to click on your backdrop library. Another one is to click on the backdrop tool. And the other one would be to click on open. Either way, I'll click on the backdrop tool and say backdrop. Now it starts by looking in, you know, a folder where there's, you know, these images that came with the software is, but if you want to browse to your own images, you can browse your locations of your computer, look on your folders. I've got a folder for today's class here somewhere. And I've got this image. It's a JPEG of a red truck with a tree in the background. Okay. So what have I opened? First of all, it's a image that was a JPEG. It's made up of pixels. If you look at it, you can see them. Yep, they're there, but there's a lot more pixels in this one than there was in this one. Remember the worm, when we zoomed in on his body, you could really see the pixels. When we went on this red truck, so what I'm telling you is there's a quality factor when it comes down to things like clip art. The more pixels, the better the quality. The smoother the lines. Can you see what I mean when I say smoother the lines? Even though those are made up of pixels, look how small the pixels are and therefore how smooth the lines look. When you've got artwork like this, it's perfect for the auto trace tool. When you have artwork like this, it's okay for the auto trace tool, but it depends on what what your end goal is. I guess at the end of the day, auto trace works better the cleaner the artwork. You can use it in any artwork, good, bad, or otherwise. It's this, what I'm talking about is this little magic wand up here. The magic wand tools auto traces areas of similar colors. So if I click on that and I click on this little shape, it traced it. If I hide the backdrop momentarily, you'll see it. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. Click on that one, click on that one, click on that one. See, I'm tracing my guy. Now, I know that the shapes aren't perfect, but not the reason they're not perfect was the artwork. It's trying to trace like colors. And when you get this close, it doesn't feel like that part's the same color as this part. So all that said, it traces what it gets. You get what you get, but it is an instant gratification. Once you've got that traced off, you could fill it in with embroidery, and I'm not sure that it really mattered how smooth or perfect the outline was anyways. I think it's working out just fine, right? Click one of this, fill it in, click on one of these, fill it in. Now, I have to pay attention to things like the colors because the software is just kind of filling in as I go. And then, this guy was really two different colors. So I guess you have to click on them and, change their colors, that kind of thing. And pay attention to all the things you can, like what stitch direction do you want it to be on? Where do you want it to start sewing? Where do you want it to finish sewing? So if you don't have artwork and you have good clip art, you can auto trace, and that works really well when you have great clip art like this one here. If I click on that little magic wand tool, click, does the tree. Boom, that's it. Now I've got a tree. What can I do with it? Well, I can select it. I can color it green and fill it in with red. Bingo. Turn on 3D. Let's do the tires. Grab your little magic wand. Boom. And boom. And now you've got the two tires are kind of drawn. And so select one of those tires. And now here, I'm going to do a satin. And I'm going to tell it to go on that angle, on this angle, on this angle, and on this angle. And that way it'll kind of like turn around it like a tire, like gives it the dimension I want. It came in as a split satin. If you don't like the kind of rings that it gets made because of the split satin, see, it's a satin, but in the properties, there's a setting here that says split, and it's splitting with a minimum stitch of 1.2 and a maximum stitch of 7. But if you're like, and that looks great for some types of embroidery, but on the tires, you might be like, I wish it was smoother. Well, then instead of doing it look at the tabs, it's not here on the split tab, it's on the first tab, the fill tab, where it says satin. Just change it to a pattern fill. And now it'll be nice and smooth, but the stitches go from this direction to that direction. They turn around, so it gives more dimension, as opposed to taking the same tire, so that's one tire as a satin path. Take the other tire and click on the standard fill tool, and then you get a one single stitch direction. So can you recognize where those are different? Anyway, this is me digitizing in a method called auto trace. And essentially I'm clicking to have the software trace the shapes, and then I'm deciding what kind of thread to put in the shapes. I'm deciding what color to make the shapes. It's like, okay, these two will be black. And so you go shopping for colors until you find a black, and you color them black. And then you're like, well, the hubcaps are going to be silver. And so I take my magic wand tool and I go click, and I go click, and now I got the hubcaps. Remember, they're just artwork. So I'm going to do them as a silver standard fill. So this is how you can create with auto trace. Auto trace works great when you have clip art, so it's easy for the software to discern the colors, the different areas of your design. And when you have high resolution artwork, it does really well. Watch how amazing it works with the body. Like I'll click on the color red right here, and it traces over all of the outlines. So let me just hide the backdrop. Look, it's almost done the whole words, Merry Christmas, everything. If I zoom in, what's it missing? Well, the centers of the R's. I still have to trace that, trace the center of the A. Now you can select all that artwork and do it all as a run stitch outline, if that's what you want. Or take that run stitch that was the whole truck body, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like see how the software is. I clicked on auto trace and it traced it all as one thing. Let's just get rid of the thread. I'm going to go back to artwork. So it's all one piece of artwork. Let's hide the backdrop so you can see it. See the shape I'm talking? Let's click on red. The red shape, that's what we're talking about here, okay? This red shape. It's got all these parts to it. It's all one shape. And so what I'm going to do is use a tool here called break apart. That will allow me to make the red shape into a bunch of shapes. You see, and now what I can do is I can say, you know what? I don't even want that Merry Christmas part. I'm going to just select it all and just go delete Aruma. My truck's going to say Floriani. I'm going to add my own text to it, you know. That part's gone. Now take the rest of your red stuff. If you want to do it as a run stitch outline, fine, click on run stitch outline. If you want to fill it in, you've got a bit of an issue because we broke it apart. And so if I click on the outline and I click fill, it's going to fill in the window and the door and all of it, right? So watch what we can. And so this really probably should have been a topic, because I'm going to introduce something right now that I didn't really kind of set the stage with an introduction as a topic. But the concept here is I can select all of these artwork shapes. They're run stitches. Let's just make them artwork again. So they're all that artwork, and then combine it. See the little paper clip, the little combine tool at the top? Combine. So what that does is it tells the software that it's all one thing that has an outline, and the other shapes become holes. See, want to see it with a paint fill? See, the white is a void. That way, when you click on your standard fill, it fills in the red area and not the white areas. You might have to rewind that part if I blew by that too fast for you guys. But the concept was there was 4 shapes, but what we really wanted was to combine them together so that there was an outside, and then the inside shapes became the holes. And that's how I can fill this in. When I digitized the design, what I actually did was I used that where is it here? The red truck with the green tree. I used the open density fill tools to make it, is what I did. I did it all in kind of a unique pattern like that. See that? So look at the fill. Look at the properties. It's a bean fill. It's a special kind of fill that makes a really sort of chunky stitch. Notice the tree and how I split it in 2 pieces and made 2 different directions. So notice our tree and how it's like currently all one solid piece of embroidery. Again, select your tree, click on the artwork tool to basically take all the thread out of it. And then this is another one that's sort of like a new thing for you guys today, the knife tool, to basically go click and right click to slice the tree in half. So the artwork that we made with 1 click is now 2 pieces of artwork. A left side, which I could do as so this is like an open density fill on one direction, and then the other side, and you can do the same kind of an open density fill, but then change the angle line. Remember the ability to set the directions. Yeah, and so that's, I mean, to me, you guys, once you kind of get this all kind of connect all the dots from today's class, you'll really be off and running. And then you'll be ready to do the rest of the FTCU workshop classes, where we really focus in on the really important stuff, like what kind of underlay should I choose, and what's the proper stitch length and density for all this stuff. Okay, so fun to digitize using the magic wand tool, because it makes that tracing, bing bango, easy to do, and fun to kind of like just fill in the shapes with unique and interesting stitch types. The next one we're going to do is auto digitizing. And so with auto digitizing, we go through a wizard, and I'll just open up the software again. Now, the one thing I want to say about this auto digitize wizard is by the time you watch this video, depending on when you watch it, we are updating it. So here, let's start a new empty workspace. What I'm telling you is the next time Floriani does an update to the software, I don't know what the build number will be, but it will be the build that comes after 3749. That's what I'm using today. It will probably be released in June of 2021. And what I'm telling you is we're updating. The tool that I'm about to show you is getting a makeover. It's here, the wizard hat. We have a cross stitch wizard, a photo stitch wizard, we have an auto artwork wizard, and we have an auto digitizing wizard. And it's the auto digitizing wizard that I'm talking about. We're getting a new one, or an advanced one. How's that? We're adding a new one later, but for now we're going to talk about the basic one. Okay, so this won't change. What I'm talking about is actually something new. You'll learn about that later, and when that comes out, you'll learn about it in the update videos on the R&K Software Club when we record what's new in the software. But for today, this is the latest. So the tool I'm showing you has 4 options. So artwork to cross stitch, artwork to photos. That's been kind of also upgraded to the new photo to stitches tool, which is kind of a more advanced, much more advanced version actually. Auto artwork will take your image and vectorize it, but not fill it in with thread. Digitizing will take your image, vectorize it, and fill it in with embroidery all in one step. And that's what we're going to do next. And so when you click on the tool, it goes through a step-by-step wizard. And the first step is to select an image. And so again, it kind of comes to these images that come with the software. That said, you're free to go to your desktop or any folder of your computer and choose any kind of image. That they're meant to be bitmap images, right? JPEGs, those kinds of things. And so bitmaps, TIFFs, images that are made up of pixels, basically. And you say open. Now, next. And acquire, well, that's kind of a throwback. I don't know if anybody has a, that's going back to the days when we used to have a scanner attached to our computer, and we would click on acquire and it would somehow interface with your scanner. To be honest, I don't even use that. That button's kind of antiquated to me anymore. Most of us probably use our phone to take a picture instead of a scanner, you know, and then you select the image. So chances are you're never going to use this acquire button ever. Select image is the correct one to choose. Select the image and say next. Now it shows you your image, and in the first step, you can transform the size of it. So it tells you here what size it is. It says it's basically 1.5 inches tall and just under that wide. And if you're like, no, I want the butterfly bigger, you can change it right now. And that is important when you're auto digitizing, because if you're just doing a wee little, 2-inch butterfly, the software will choose different kinds of embroidery than if you made this a big 8-inch butterfly, because the software will be in the next steps choosing the kinds of stitches to give us. So anyway, you can adjust the size. If there was a bunch of white space, you could use these buttons to like crop it out. So if you had a large white background, you could kind of transform and I guess crop, if you will, a little bit. But whatever is inside of the black area is what will go forward as the part to get embroidered. In the next step, it's called color reduction. And now if you give this a true photograph, the software is going to have a lot of color reduction to do. When you give it clip art, it's a lot easier because there's not nearly so many colors in the design. That said, you can add and remove colors by clicking in here to add or remove the colors. If you don't want black, click on that, click delete, and it'll get rid of that color. So you can add and remove any colors that are available in your palette. And you can also click on edit your image. So if there's anything wrong with your image, clicking edit image would allow you to go into an image editing program, whatever one you have. It'll default to like Microsoft Paint if you don't have something else. But the idea is it goes into an editing program. You can add or edit your image and then bring it back and kind of go forward. So don't do that every day either, but I have done that on occasion. And this will show and kind of preview what it's going to look like. When you say next, it brings you to the vectorization window. And this is really where the software is trying to decide how to trace the shapes. You'll find on certain images with certain number of colors that saying more or less will pick up more of the shapes of your design or less of them. It essentially tells the software how detailed to vectorize the image. There is one other part of this step, and that is the sensing of the background. The software has detected white as a background color, and it's going to void it. If you wanted the white color filled, you could click here, and that would tell it to fill in the white. For that matter, if you'd rather have it be the pink be the background color, then now what's going to happen is it's going to fill in the white and the black and leave the pink not part of my embroidery design. And so we'll try that as something a little bit different. And the very last step is about lock stitches and trims. And do you want them kind of yes or no, or always, or never, or only if there's a trim at so many millimeters, you know, that kind of thing. But when you say finish, the software will go ahead and make the design. So in this case, I made a white background with a black fill, and I left the wings void, which was kind of funny. But if we ran it through again, and just, you know, sort of did the same butterfly, and we leave the white as the background, then you get the opposite effect, right? Where it does the pink and the black and not the white. So either way, the software has created these shapes. Once the shapes are created, I can click on them and select them, and I can convert them to any style of embroidery. Now I've made it a run stitch outline. Now I've made it an auto satin. Now I've made it a, you know, open density fill. So this is the concept that you can select that butterfly's wings and say, well, that's cool, but I was thinking about doing it with Mylar, you know, and so when I did my butterfly, I made it a little bit larger, and I converted the wings into a motif fill. So took that wing shape, and instead of doing a standard fill, I did a motif fill, and I made the pattern slightly smaller. And when I stitched it, I sewed over top of Mylar. So Mylar being a topping, which made my butterfly's wings sparkly. And so this is the idea that even though I didn't digitize the butterfly and the software auto digitized it, I can still select these wings, and I can make them a satin outline. I can make them a motif fill. I could click copy and paste and have both. See? And then if you're like, yeah, but then I think the black needs to go last. And so you select it and move it to the end of your sewing sequence. And, you know, and so really this is the concept of creating embroidery. You're in control. You can use the automation, yes or no. The automation really depends on what you have for artwork to start out with. If you love this part of it, you really will love the FTCU workshop classes, because that's really what we talk about when we get into, you know, classes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, et cetera, et cetera. So there's your little Mylar butterfly, you guys. We are probably getting tired. This has been a long class, and I have one more little kind of demo for you guys, and then I will open up to questions and then wrap it up for today. And get the download ready to send to everybody with the printable class notes and the designs also. That I'll have all the designs ready to go with the download for today. But one last one. We're going to talk about digitizing this soccer ball. So I pop back into the software. I'm going to go on to the, just first of all, make a new empty workspace and cleans page to work with. The soccer ball. So first of all, with the soccer ball, it comes from the collection, and so there is artwork for it. I have to figure it out which one it is. Probably should have just wrote down the name. The one thing about the artwork files is they don't preview real well, and so I often just kind of have to click on them to see which ones they are. And so I'm just kind of flying through the group looking for my soccer ball here. Excuse me. Of course, it's going to be like right down at the bottom, but yeah, it's probably the next one. There you go. So it was 64, Trevor. Should have wrote that down. So it's artwork, right? I shouldn't have to do anything but click and go, right? There's the white. Perfect. Click on fill. Bingo. Looking good. All right. Click on the color black. I don't know. What is it? Is it a run stitch? I don't really think so. I'll try run. Yeah, no, it's not right. So undo, select the black again. Is it a standard fill? Well, kinda. Undo. Why not? By the way, I'm noticing, I'm going to hit undo one more time, right back to the beginning here. This ball had two pieces of artwork. There was a gray and there was another gray. There's actually supposed to be two colors of gray in here. Like you can see it, it's like a shadow. So now you have to decide, do you want that? Because there's that piece and then there's this piece. So this piece is actually the one that's on top. And in my ball, I don't think I need that. I only want one fill, right? So there, my first mistake was to not pay attention to what I had, which was the vector artwork had like two shapes in it. So I'm going to just have the one, fill that in with red. So the black, is it a standard fill? Well, maybe it would be okay, but my instincts tell me that these little columns here are going to be so skinny they won't look good. You know, if I measure across them, they're like 0.05 of an inch. If I go in metric and I measure it in metric, that's like measuring to be like 1 millimeter across. So it's pretty skinny. And my thinking was I kind of want those to be run stitches, but I kind of want these parts to be fill stitches. So I'll undo. All right, so take a look. So I've got this piece of artwork, and even though it's a vector, the issue is it doesn't, what I really want is like a line for here to be the run stitch and then a square for here to be the fill. And since this artwork isn't made that way, I might end up digitizing it. Even though I have artwork, now I can select it and try to break it apart and see what I get. So that made it kind of weird. But look, so there's this piece here. There's this piece here. So can you see how the layering, the way that that black shape was made doesn't break apart to give me a line and a square? What I really want, I don't have. Even though I have vector artwork, I don't have what I want. So learning what you want is kind of the trick of it, because I think most of us, if we didn't have any software to think about and we just could see the picture and we know these different kinds of embroidery, we could say, I want this kind of embroidery here. I want a run stitch here. I want a satin stitch there. You can see what you want. You know what you want. So now you know how to make it. You know, okay, if I want a run stitch, I click on the pencil. Here, let's go right to the digitizing tool and use the digitizing run stitch and go like this. Click, click, right click. There, we digitized a run stitch. You can't see it because it's in the same color as the artwork, but I'll make it light so you can see it. See, now we get to an area that we want a satin. So let's click on the classic satin and go click, click, click. I'm not going to fuss over the points, close enough. I am 400% zoomed in already. Now I right click and I give it a stitch direction. Now I right click and say, well, start sewing there, finish sewing there, boom. Now I go to the run stitch again. So click on here, click on run stitch, click here, and do another fill stitch. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you've got artwork and it's not what you want, or if you don't have artwork, if you're willing to learn to use the tools to create it from scratch, really anything is possible. And yet the artwork that, so we've got, so to summarize, we have gone a long way in today's class, you guys. We started out with some basic editing concepts. We went through how to use all of the core tools of the software, how to use the digitizing tools, how to use the artwork tools, how to use the select tool, how to use the shape tool, how to go through all the different styles of embroidery that you can convert to, how to use the magic wand tool, what's the difference between a backdrop and an artwork. We used the automatic digitizing tool, and we looked at using the manual digitizing tools. It's a massive class, you guys. There's so much to learn, and you may want to watch this one more than once. I'm just popping up my questions box to see if I have any questions from any of you guys while I'm at it. Maybe I'll just bring up the photo of the soccer ball so you can kind of see what it turns out like when I do it the way I said, where I kind of manually created that ball myself. And so there's a few pieces to it, you know, a one white ball, yes, but then there's probably 10 or 12 run stitch pieces and 5 or 6 satin stitch pieces that all go together to make, you know, one little kind of cool design like this. Yeah. Marcia said, good review, learned a few things. That's great to know, Marcia. She's been taking my classes for practically 15 years. Great demonstration showing the tremendous power in FTCU, creating unique designs and available ability to make changes your creations. Thanks a bunch, Trevor. Chock full of info, lots to absorb, must practice. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Catherine. Let's see. I love acquiring special scanning fabrics and photos because then I don't have to deal with proportion and scaling. Cool. You referred to my Facebook page. What's it called? Did I say about my Facebook? I think what I said was I'm going to put this on my YouTube page. I am on Facebook. It's Trevor Conquergood. You're welcome to friend me. I have my Sunset Stitches is my Facebook page, and my YouTube channel is also Sunset Stitches. So what I'm saying is that you're more than welcome to share this class from when I post it on YouTube with anybody who's brand new and doesn't know anything about Trevor or the workshop or all that stuff. So yeah. Anyway, thanks, Rhonda. Thanks, Brenda. Thanks, everybody. Today, thanks for all your nice comments and questions. Today's class was a great class for a new person. Remember, this was my quick start guide. We're doing quick start part 2. And our next class will be quick start part 3. We're going to be doing lettering. We're going to talk about thread palettes and how you can create your own. We'll talk about wordplay and motifs and appliques, and we'll talk about cutwork and lace and some of the fun stuff, you guys. And so I hope you're enjoying these quick start guides. Until next time, I want to remind you guys that if you are a member of FTCU Workshop number 1, that there is a current design challenge, and you're more than welcome to send in your design. Now, if you're watching this video and it's a year after the fact, no worries. It's still, they're awesome classes to watch, and you can always do the design challenge. You might not get your design reviewed in the challenge review class, but you can always send in your designs to me and I'll be happy to look at them, you guys. In the meantime, thank you so much for being a member of my Workshop 1. Thank you so very much to everybody who attended today's class live. It was fun to chat with you guys. To everybody who watched today's class in this recording, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, have a great day, and bye for now.